Hello and welcome to Getter Farms. We're back with an episode of Westby Wisconsin Revised, and we have finished up our spring tillage, prepping the fields for planting here. But before we got started on that, I think last time I was mentioning that this cultivator wasn't getting dirty. I was definitely wrong. I just had not put enough time in the field yet, so it is nice and dirty now. Unfortunately, we can't afford a pressure washer, so we're going to put this thing away dirty, and I'm trying to remember where I stored it. I think I stored it up here in the shed where the planter is, but before I put it back in there, I need to get this planter out of there. So let's go ahead and grab our other tractor just to pull the planter out of the shed. Wow, that's a loud garage door. And so we're going to just hook it up to the 4440 here to get it out of the shed so that I don't have to disconnect and reconnect to the chisel plow here. Actually, field cultivator, whatever you want to call it. So what are we... So today we're going to be getting ready for planting. But before we actually start planting, there have been just a ton of comments around getting into the field here and maybe combining some of these strips because they're pretty small. And so we're going to take a look at that. This planter is leaning back pretty heavily because the last time I finished modding it, I forgot to script its hiring animation correctly. So this has been a work in progress mod that I've been working on for a little while now. And so it's just going to keep being a work in progress, and maybe each episode I'll keep making it a little bit better, but it does plant, and that's what's important. So we're going to leave that there for the moment. We're going to park this here, not put a fork through our fuel tank. That would be a bad day. And I'm going to go ahead and just get this in the shed and get the planter hooked up. But before we get the planter hooked up, I think what we're going to do is look at combining some of these strips into a couple of wider strips, and then possibly putting some grass back in. There's not a lot of room to maneuver here. Let's see if we can make this corner. Nope. Alright, we don't want to bang into the shed here. Let's see, I think I can get squared up over here. Not put the dual in the other shed. This might actually have been easier if I did it in cab. Oh well, we're just gonna finish here. What we're not gonna do is finish a thought today, apparently. So we're gonna grab our disc here in a second, since it is set up to count as a plow. And we're going to combine a couple of these field sections. And I think what we're going to do is just do them in half. We're going to combine every other field section. So I think I want... Well, let's just jump out and run over here and look. So I think what I want to do is combine these two sections on the right, the middle two sections, and the two sections on the left. So I'll have 3 total strips, and then I'll widen out the grass areas in between each of those strips a little bit, and we'll call that good enough. Over here, the strips are a little bit wider on this section, but really I think that strip should be about 3 times as wide as they are right now, just because then you'd be able to get a mower down that section and a baler if you wanted to do hay. We don't have any animals, so I don't think I would bother doing hay on the strips, but we might widen them out a little bit, and I'll probably put a little bit of grass down on that far end so I'm not banging into the trees every time I'm trying to turn around. So that's kind of what we're thinking. So with that, let's go ahead and grab that disc real quick, which I believe is over here in the other shed. And then we'll just combine these fields up real quick and see where that gets us. So we're going to go ahead and go down here. And we'll start with this farthest section. Get the disc unfolded here. And I don't want to remove my road track here, so I'm just gonna see if I can get positioned about there. Remember what buttons do what here. There we go. And then I'll have to probably come back and run the cultivator over this after we're done with this, but I think this is gonna work out pretty good. And then what we'll do is I'll come back in with the landscaping tool and add some grass on this downhill side of this existing grass strip, just to widen that out a little bit to be more realistic, because the whole intent is to slow some of the water down as it's going downhill. And so we need to bring that grass into some of the downhill area. I mean, theoretically, I guess this line was probably in a good spot from a land contour perspective. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this spot. Nah, it's all right. I mean, we've got quite a bit of downhill slope on all of these fields in front of us, so if I just bring that grass strip a little bit on the south side of the existing one, that should still feel somewhat realistic, I think. We're trying to find that balance between doing what's right and making the game still somewhat playable and enjoyable here. I think for this, I'm going to go ahead and lift up, leave that little spot. Something like that looks pretty good. And then when we come back in here with the landscaping tool, I'm really hoping painting grass doesn't cost me a fortune, because I don't have any money. And so if painting grass is going to cost money, we may have made a big mistake. The things I should have probably tested before we got this far. Why am I bothering? I don't need to do that if I'm going to paint grass on the ends here a little bit more. And so now we're going to jump up over this next one and get the one on top of the hill, because this one doesn't matter as much from a terrain perspective, because, well, you don't get a lot of water running right off of the top of the hill. You more want it on the hillside. And so now that we're up on top of the hill, you can see that there is a pretty significant slope here for water to be running down the side over there. So I think where that grass strip is makes sense as long as I widen it out a little bit. And then likewise on my left side here, that's definitely on the other side of the top of the hill. And so the goal is all the rainwater that falls up here on the top of the hill, want to kind of slow that down as it runs down the side of this hill. So I think this is going to work out pretty good. And we'll see how it goes. We are going to need to come back over this with the cultivator, though, just to level out all this plowed up dirt before we run the planter through here. And the air temperature is actually pretty warm at this point. So I'm expecting as we advance to the next day, our ground temperatures are going to come up. Probably not quite high enough for planting, but I am trying to run the clock a little bit faster now. We're on 5x at the moment because I wanted to finish this work before the end of the day. And then we'll see how the next few work days go. But my goal is definitely not to run the clock at 1x. I want to speed things up a little bit. So for this grass strip, I don't want to make that field too big. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense coming up over the hill like this. But the goal would be to widen it, at least down here. And then this one here, honestly, we probably need to leave this grass strip here, I'm thinking. Because otherwise there's nothing really on this side of the slope that's slowing down our water. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe I'll combine this piece up here and have one larger section kind of on the top of the hill, and then the contours on either side. I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't know how that's supposed to work, but that's what makes sense to me. So we're going to grab this section and have one bigger section here up on the top, and then the two side sections. So we still end up with the 3 field sections that I was planning on, just a little bit different than I thought I was going to do when we started doing this, but that's okay. So we're going to grab this, and then what we'll do is we'll take we'll expand that grass up the hill towards me a little bit more, rather than make that piece down by the fence any smaller. So we've got a plan. Let's go ahead and get to the end here, and then we'll switch over to the landscaping mode. And the reason that I'm going to do landscaping mode is because if I were to find a seeder and plant the grass, I would still be ripping that up anytime. If I used a helper or did anything, I'd be completely destroying that grass every time. Or if I use the landscaping mode to create the grass, it'll stay grass. And just given the tendency for accidents to happen here in Farm Sim, I'd rather have it be permanent grass that I can't destroy unless I turn on the allow create fields mode. And maybe that's not the most realistic, but I don't want to be fighting with accidentally plowing over grass and stuff on a regular basis when we're trying to do our headlands and things like that when we are doing tillage. So I am going to take the slightly easier route there and use the landscaping tools. We're just gonna spin around here and catch this like that. Make sure I've got create fields off. All right. So we've done all the plowing that I intend to do as far as setting the new boundaries of the field. So we're gonna put this back in and then grab the landscaping tools. I want to get it off to the side a little bit so that if I have another piece of equipment I want to park somewhere, I can get it in here. I'm also curious at this point if I could get that digger in over here at some point as well. Well, so let's go ahead and just, since we're in this and it's on already, I'm going to run this over and hook it up to the planter and leave it over there. And then we'll try landscaping. It's been a while since I've used the landscaping tools, so I'm going to have to look at the menu a little bit here for a minute. Okay, let's get you hooked up here. All good to go. Is there any hoses or anything that need to be hooked up? No. All right, landscaping tool. Where did you go? In here. F1 menu. I want to switch to painting mode. And I'm going to tab through until I get to grass. And then, like I said, I think I want this to expand down the hill a bit. And I think I want it to be about twice as wide as it is now. So let's take this around and then we'll see what that looks like. I don't like how squared it's looking right now. So I'm going to have to use a smaller brush after I do this to patch this up a little bit, I think. All right, at least it's not costing me a fortune. probably made that a smidge too wide there. I don't own the land. Let's make this a little smaller here. I don't necessarily want a huge headland of grass down here, but I do want to clean up these areas that the old crop textures are left over because they look a little funny. And just give myself a little bit of a buffer with these trees and everything else going on. Do not own this land. I was able to plow this land. What do you mean I don't own it? Okay, well that's just gonna look a little goofy there. And let me make this a little bit smaller again. Because I'm just trying to clean up the crop textures here, not take too much of my field. Although I don't really like getting into the fence, so we'll leave a little bit of room for the fence. That looks a little funny. Let's see if we can square that off. There we go. We had a lot of problems down on this side hill with the tool falling into the fence, so we're just going to clean some of that up. There we go. And we're just going to clean this part up a little bit. Might decide to hit a little bit more of this with the plow next time. We'll see. And we're almost done with our first field. Luckily, we've only got 3 total fields now. There we go. So looking at this, let's clean this part up a smidge. Like that. Let's balance that out. Let's balance this out. And this is looking better. It's not the straightest. This looks a little too square for me. Let's bring it in a little bit. That looks pretty good. I can clean up some crop textures in a few spots on the corner here. There we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And then on this side, we were gonna essentially do something similar and widen out the downhill part here. I'm trying to get rid of some of the crop texture here. Make this a little bit wider. There we go. Yeah, I have not done a lot of stuff with the landscaping tool of late. I used to, especially back in my time-lapse days, I would like create all my own farms and do a lot of custom landscaping, and I kind of got out of it, which is unfortunate because it's actually a lot of fun to do some customization, and it's like not quite map making, but it's, you know, a lot like, you know, making the map only at a smaller scale. And so it's something that I've always enjoyed doing. And so I'm actually going to challenge myself here over the next several months and start working on creating a map of the farm that I spent my teenage years farming on. So I keep talking about, you know, the farming I did when I was younger, 20 plus years ago now. And I thought it would be fun to try and actually create my own map. It's something that I've always wanted to do in Farming Simulator. And hopefully I'm going to start having a little bit more free time and be able to tackle that project. And so if that is something that I'm able to kick off here soon, I will definitely be doing some videos about that and talking about it in, you know, my various series, and maybe even do some live streams and such as I get into that whole world. There's a lot to map making, and I've never done it before, so I might be getting a little over ambitious, but that's part of the fun of Farm Sim, is learning new things and trying to do different deals. I did do a fair bit of modding and editing mods and stuff lately, and so I'm starting to build out those skill sets. So map making seemed like it would be a little bit easier than trying to learn all of the 3D modeling from scratch to do an actual mod of something. And so we're going to give map making a shot, because there's a lot of resources available, especially on the Giants Mod Hub, that you can use in your map. There's different, placeables and things, and artifacts that you're able to include in your maps that have been released on the Giants Mod Hub. So we're going to definitely be checking out some of those things and seeing what we can come up with. And so we're almost done with kind of widening out these grassy areas. I think we're going to call it good enough. There's a few areas I can't actually paint there because we don't own the land, which is okay. And this should just give me a little bit of space by these trees. Hopefully we'll be able to turn our equipment around in a more meaningful way. I need to make this brush a little bit smaller, and we'll clean up some of this jagged edge, and then we're going to call it good enough. And so hopefully this is going to have just a little bit more of a realistic feel to it. Since these grass strips, when I did a little bit of research, was looking online, a lot of pictures of the Wisconsin area where this is pretty common due to their hilly terrain and such. And yeah, if you have grass strips, they were typically wide enough to mow so that you could do hay, and or you just have crops that are planted right next to each other without much space in between them, which is also interesting. Again, something that I've never done before, but I think that this, given that the map was already set up like this, is going to work a little bit better for me. And it still gives me the optionality to maybe use a hired worker for some tasks if I need to. Although the curviness of these fields makes that next to impossible. But you never know. We might find a use for one somewhere. And so here we are. We're coming right up on the end of the field here. I think I might have spoken too soon. And this is the great thing about how these work in real life, is like they're not necessarily 100% the same width. You're kind of following the contour of the land. So I think that's looking pretty good. I think we're going to widen this smidge in the corner just a hair more. I hate getting stuck in fences. And that's true in real life. I got a corn head stuck in a barbed wire fence, like almost exactly like this one time, and really did some damage to both the snout on the initial hit and then sucking the wire into the corn header because it was on at the time. So that's just a bad day in general. So we're going to try and avoid doing the same. It's just not worth the extra couple inches of ground to get that close to the fence. And so we're going to just clean this up like so. Trying not to take too many of these bushes out as I do this. There we go. All right. So with that, I think the next stage is going to be planting some crops. We might do that next episode. Well, maybe I think we're going to push that to next episode just because I don't want to start a job with just a couple minutes left. And so that'll be a good clean break for us, is to jump over and buy the seed and kind of do the economics of how far do I think we're going to get with the seed we buy. That's what we're going to kick off next episode with, and dive into getting things planted. So hopefully you're enjoying this series. I know today was a little bit of a different episode as we kind of get this farm set up the way that we want it moving forward. If you're looking for an awesome place to communicate with other farm sim players, we do have a Kettering Farms Discord server. Pretty active community there, lots of lively discussions, and a lot of good support for figuring out how to use mods and issues that people are running into with the game. And so definitely recommend checking that out. The link is in the description. And as always, if you're enjoying the episode, please consider leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button for more content. With that, that's all for today. Kettering.